Welcome to the MPAC Zoomcast. I'm Ed Kirchdoerffer, Chief Operating Officer here at Mayo Performing Arts Center. Today we have a very special Zoomcast. We're with two people who will not be appearing on our stage. They are not performers or singers or dancers, but they are two people who experience the real life come from away. Come from away is coming to MPAC March 28th through 30th, and we are joined by Sue Riccardelli and Maureen Murray, both from Mars Plains. They are real life plain people. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. We love telling our story about the people of Gander.
So take us back September 11th, 2001. Where were you coming from? Like, kind of bring us into how you ended up on Gander.
Right. Well, I can start off
Sure.
and just tell you that we were on a fabulous vacation in Paris and the Loire Valley, and just barely made our flight, which was ironic. And we ended up 2 hours away from, I guess, what you would call New York and Newark airspace when chaos broke out on the plane. Terrified flight attendants pushing their carts through, gathering up things, closing curtains. I mean, it was a little frightening because we didn't know exactly what was happening.
But we knew something was
We knew something was up. Yeah. And then there was an announcement that there was terrorist activity in the New York vicinity and that we would be diverted to a place called Gander, Newfoundland.
Hmm. And I'm thinking 2001, really before cell phones, right? So
Yes.
so it's
Some people had flip phones,
uh,
but the problem was there were no signals
Right.
at that point.
right.
Yeah.
Very few on the plane had cell phones, and so folks were clamoring for they used to have the phones on the planes, and folks were clamoring for those folks who were sitting up in first class, and you really couldn't get through.
Yeah, so you're diverted to Gander, you land. What's going through your mind? Now you're also obviously from the New York area as well, right? So what's going on in your mind as you land, and what what are you being told?
Right. First off, we're doing an inventory in our minds of who is there. Sue's mom worked across the street from the World Trade Center. So we're doing sort of who do we know, which loved ones are impacted. And the other thing, since we had no visuals, we didn't realize that the buildings were imploding. We thought they were possibly, crashing all the way down to Canal Street. We had no idea of what the whole thing looked like or how many blocks were taken out or whatever. So we're doing an inventory of loved ones. We're terrified, about the fact that we think that the United States is under attack. And there's no information coming in.
Yeah, we had little information. The only thing, we had was each other, the folks on the plane. And I remember just sitting and looking out the window and seeing school buses, seeing day turn into night, seeing school buses getting lined up outside of the next to the terminal. And so we knew something was wrong with what little information was given to us.
Right.
We were told that the towers fell, but because you couldn't see it, as Maureen said, you didn't know if they fell, this way or if they fell this way. So it was a trying. We were on the plane for a good 9 hours. It was a very trying time.
There were people behind us that were on the plane overnight.
Yeah.
So their air traffic controllers landed 38 planes in the space of an hour. And luckily, Gander had an old British Air Force base as part of their airport, a lot of it unused, but enough space that they could fit 38 planes. We were about the fourth or fifth plane in line.
Yeah.
So we only spent 9 hours. You were not allowed to take your luggage off the plane because they were doing bomb searches. And the school bus drivers in Gander came off strike to help transport a lot of us.
Yeah.
So they tried to keep each plane together. So whether it was an Elks Lodge or a Moose Lodge or a
college,
we stayed in a college, an aviation and nursing and culinary college. Culinary part is key because
we were fed well.
We were fed very well by the culinary students who came in, and plus all the townspeople brought trays and trays of food in. So they were amazing.
So when you say 9 hours, is it 9 hours from the point of getting on the plane in Paris, or 9 hours from landing, touching down at Gander?
9 hours on the tarmac in Gander.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
and the people, like I said, it's lined up, 38
Mhm.
planes. The
Mhm.
people in the back of the line were on the plane overnight.
Right, we were able, finally to get off the plane and get processed through customs and transported to, for us, it was the College of the North Atlantic.
Right.
But there were the planes plane number 35, 36, 37, 38. They were on the plane for much, much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you got processed off and ended up in that college, is that when you were able to see what actually happened in New York, or when could you actually
We
feel the weight of what happened that day?
we got into the terminal, we were processed, and there were lines of Newfoundlanders seated at tables. They had food, they had packages, apples and really any kind of food that you'd want at the time. We didn't know much more. We got on our bus and we were transported to the College of the North Atlantic, and it was only when we got off the bus, we walked inside, and the cafeteria of the college, they had two televisions set up, one on either side of the cafeteria. And it was only at that moment when we walked in and saw the television that we saw, and it just always gets emotional for me at this part, that we saw what you had all been watching for hours
For all
and
the day,
hours and
yeah, the whole
hours.
day.
That's when it became real for
Yeah.
us.
Right.
That was very hard.
Were you able to check in with loved ones or anyone? You had mentioned you had somebody
Oh,
who worked
not
across the
right
street.
away.
Not right away.
Not
No,
right away.
but they did give us internet.
Mhm.
We had a communication room in the college, and
Mhm.
we were able to make phone calls and get on the internet after a number of hours. And there were lines, to do that.
Yeah.
But we were able to get through finally.
Right.
And when we were in the cafeteria of the college watching all of this is where we met some of the people that you will see on that stage.
Right.
So the two Kevins, we hung out with the two Kevins,
Right.
recognizing them as another gay couple. And I mean, they were a little freaked out. They didn't know what kind of reception they would have,
Right.
So
Excuse me.
so we were kind of hanging out with the two Kevins, and then our little pod of people got a little
Mhm.
bit bigger. And we started kind of clinging to each other for
Right.
support. So you will see the two Kevins, they are stars of the show. We're still friends and still working together to spread the word.
Yes.
The fabulous Captain Bev Bass, we have since met and become friends
her.
with.
Mhm.
And another thing to think about in the show, everything you see in that show really happened. It's an
Really?
actual occurrence. The only thing they had to change, because they only have a certain number of cast members, is that a lot of the folks are composites. The gal that saved the animals from the cargo was actually two people. But most are real people, and some are made up of several people,
Mm. When you first heard that a musical was being made about this experience, what did you think?
Oh, well, we met the producers, the
Mm.
creators, and you can tell that story, Sue, at the 10th reunion.
We went for the 10th reunion, so many Plain people went back. Maureen and I went back the following year. We went back in 2002, 2004, 2008, 2010. Two of the Newfoundlanders that we stayed with, McAnally, came to our home. So 2011 came, so many Plain people went back up, and they had an amazing celebration of the Newfoundlanders and the partnership and the friendship between America and Canada. And Irene and David, the two folks who wrote the play, they interviewed a lot of different people. And they were interviewing folks, I believe it was for the Canadian curriculum. They didn't want the Canadian they wanted the Canadian school children to always know the good that Canada did for America and the world on 9/11 and the days, after. And then it just took off on its own. The play was so good, the music, and they just took it through all the way to Broadway. So
Yes. They
we-
tried out. They
Yeah.
tried out for Broadway. They thought it was going to be a high school play.
Right.
And,
just for the Canadian, the Canadian people. So
Yeah.
right.
we were so happy to see that it made it to Broadway, and now the touring company around the country and around the world, actually.
Right. We had done numerous interviews with the New York Times. Sue and one of the Kevins was on Primetime ABC.
Yeah.
So after years and years of trying to spread the word, the show, the play, the musical is what finally reached the masses about what Canada and in particular Newfoundland did for the American people.
Right.
When you first saw the musical, what emotions were stirred up inside of you? I mean, it must have been like just a cry for
seeing people that we know portrayed by actors telling our story that we had been trying to get out for years. It was incredible, but they managed to make it both funny. You know, there's you're laughing and you're crying like within the same 15 minutes. I mean, they're very like humorous people to begin with. I mean, our friend Mac, who was the what we would call the president of the college that we stayed in, we have since become family. Yeah. And he is just the funniest guy. And and you know, the constable is a riot. The mayor is very funny. So you're laughing and you're crying, but
it's all very, very real.
Yes.
The entire play, from start to finish, there's no fabrication. Everything you see on the stage actually happened.
Mm-hmm. They just had to combine some things. Like another thing they had to slightly change is there were a lot of people from Texas with us because the flight was stopping in Newark and then heading to Texas. So the two Kevins are actually from Texas, but they made them from LA and Brooklyn just to mix it up a little bit. Bev Bass is from Texas. Diane, who married the British guy, is from Texas. So they just had to kind of change little tweaks just to make it interesting.
Mm-hmm. So you say you stay in touch with these people in Newfoundland are family to you. Is that something that is pretty universal with all the folks that had this experience that just kind of sealed this friendship and relationship?
I would say that the folks you see in the show definitely consider Newfoundlanders their families.
Yes.
Some people were so traumatized they didn't want to revisit it. Mm-hmm. We met some of those people. Somebody had a near breakdown when we finally got back to Newark. But you know, I think those of us who became sort of ambassadors to Newfoundland about this experience have what I would call family in Newfoundland. We went through a ceremony where we became Newfoundlanders. Yeah, but I would say it was very traumatic for a lot of people. Right. And they probably haven't gone back, you know, but there's a certain crowd of us who have stayed in touch regularly. Right.
And still, we know we're about 24 years from that now. So will the emotion still be raw from you when you see it, especially like in your hometown?
In our hometown, you know, that's a great story because our mayor at the time, Mayor Frank Drutzler, who a lot of people know, he was mayor for 37 years. He and the mayor, Claude Elliott of Gander, had a phone call, and Mayor Frank wanted to thank Gander for taking care of Sue and I. And there's also a gal, Carrie Cashin, in Morristown, who didn't stay in Gander, but one of the outlying towns. And her friend Carol Maslin from West Orange, they were coming back from Dublin. So there's a great local angle here. Gander's one of the few places that got a piece of the World Trade Center remnants. They sent a Canadian news crew down to interview Mayor Frank, and we ended up twinning our towns. Right. So the town of Morris Plains and the town of Gander are twin towns. Right. We exchanged keys to the city, flags, town flags. We took gifts from Mayor Frank up to Mayor Elliott as a thank you.
Morris Plains for the 10th anniversary, they have T-shirts made. And it shows the Twin Towers on it and Morris Plains. It's for 9/11. So when we went up for the 10th anniversary, we brought up a bunch of T-shirts for everybody and gave Mayor Claude. For the 10th anniversary, it was a week-long celebration, and one of them, you know, we were on stage with Mayor Elliott, Claude Elliott, and we presented him with the Morris Plains flag and the T-shirt and the key to the city or the key to the town. And another thing that they did is they had a breakfast, and they had the Plain people who showed up serving breakfast to the people of Gander, which was so moving because that's what they did for us for however many days we were there. And I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Ever forget that. That just giving them a plate of eggs and their own fried bologna, that's what they refer to their bacon as, beans, and just giving them what they gave to us was so incredibly moving.
It was magical.
Yeah.
As well as seeing the show with them
Yes.
finally. Yeah, we went up there to see the show when it was presented in Gander.
Yeah.
Mhm. And how long were you actually in Gander? And when did you get back?
I would say 3.5 days.
Yeah.
And we were always on sort of standby because you could be allowed to enter US airspace at any moment. US airspace was closed to foreign carriers, and we were on an Air France plane. So the folks that were on United or, you know, an American plane were able to go back sooner.
Mhm.
But here's the catch. After 3.5 days, we were sent back to France.
Right.
We didn't get to come home.
Yeah.
So we spent another horrifying night in France, in Paris, trying to communicate with the airline folks to tell them that, hey, we've already been back and forth. And they finally understood, and they got us on the plane. So
Well, you were on your own. And I told person at the Continental desk, I told her our story, and she said, "You're an American?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Your country is at war. You are considered a refugee. Here's your boarding pass."
yeah.
And I got a boarding pass for Maureen, and I got a boarding pass for all the people that we were hanging out
Yeah.
with. That was
the
amazing.
Kevins and
That was amazing.
Yeah.
We were considered refugees.
right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're speaking with Sue Riccardelli and Maureen Murray, two of the real life Plain people whose stories were portrayed in Come From Away, coming to Mayo Performing Arts Center, March 28th through 30th, 5 performances. We have just a few tickets left. Always check in with our box office in case tickets get turned in. We're very excited to have this show here, a very inspiring show. If you don't know about it, you'll laugh and cry and see their stories. Ladies, thank you for spending a few minutes with us this morning. We look forward to seeing you at the theater for the show, and it's an amazing story.
It really is.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You'll love the show. Love it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.